we have another national media head talking nonsense around the Minnesota Vikings. What's going on, guys? My name is Patrick Siepman, and welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. Coming up on today's show, I want to discuss what Stephen A. Smith and Cris Carter, Vikings legend wide receiver, had to say about our Minnesota Vikings heading into this must-win game. No, not really a must-win game, but a big-time game versus the Detroit Lions this Sunday. And if you guys want the Vikings to beat the Lions, I'm just asking for one thing out of you guys. Hit that thumbs-up icon. Don't jinx us. If you guys want the Vikings to move to 6-0 and celebrate a 6-victory Monday here on the season, if you guys want the Vikings to catch a big-time victory, hit that thumbs-up icon. Now, Stephen A. Smith, he disrespected the Vikings yet again. So pretty much backstory on this. Stephen A., Cris Carter, they hop on Stephen A.'s live YouTube show every week, and they just talk about the NFL. And Stephen A.'s been having Cris Carter on a lot more, talking about the Minnesota Vikings as they are off to a 5-0 start. But this is how it starts off. So Stephen A. had Cris Carter on a show, and Cris Carter was a little late running to the program. And Stephen A. started off by saying this: I mean, you were a little bit late. They were talking about technical difficulties and all that stuff. I happen to know that was a lie. I happen to know you were hiding because when you saw the Detroit Lions whoop those Cowboys' butts the way they did, you said, damn, I am not in much of a position to come talking some smack about the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this is going to be a storyline throughout the season, I think. It's going to be Stephen A. Smith versus Vikings fans. I think Stephen A. is trying to channel in, a little bit of his hatred for the Cowboys and kind of direct it towards the Minnesota Vikings, as the Cowboys are going to be pretty irrelevant here, in a couple months. But the Vikings are going to be playing big-time games. So Stephen A., he's calling out Cris Carter, saying, what are you going to say now? You're not even the best team in your division. And then Cris Carter carried on to say this after Stephen A. kind of called him out for being late. He said, I got respect for Detroit. He understands they're a good football team, number one offense in the National Football League, the most physical team in the National Football League. But Cris Carter also said this, which I thought was very interesting. He said the Detroit Lions this year might be like the 1998 Vikings. And he carried on to follow his thoughts. He carried on to say, the 98 Vikings, they had an elite offense, Moss, Carter, Culpepper, like they were one of the best offenses in the league. But that defense was pretty middle of the pack. And that's kind of what he's thinking about the Detroit Lions. Like, you can win all these regular season games, but when it comes down to December and January and February football, it's all about defense. It's all about the running game, and the Lions check one of those boxes. But with no Aiden Hutchinson now, I still got a lot of questions around this Lions defense. But Stephen A. responded by saying this: the Detroit Lions are looking like the best team in football. The Chicago Bears blitz the Jaguars. We got that going on. And, of course, Green Bay. This could arguably be the best division in football. Tell me how you encapsulate all of this. Who do you see coming out of this? And then he screams, and I need objectivity, CC, not that purple peeper eater waving the pom-pom. So, Stephen A. is clearly trying to troll Cris Carter a little bit, but Cris Carter responded saying he's confident in the Vikings this week. He believes the Vikings are going to get a win. Now, is he drinking a little too much purple Kool-Aid? Probably. I mean, he is a Vikings legend. He's a diehard Vikings fan. He loves this football team. But, if I was Cris Carter, I would respond to Stephen A. by just showing this photo of the Vikings absolutely taking the souls of the opponents they've faced. Daniel Jones, top left. He was in shambles after he played the Vikings. C.J. Stroud, he is exhausted after going up against that Brian Flores defense. Romeo Doubs of the Green Bay Packers and Matt LaFleur had fits out there on the football field. And then recently, Rodgers and Robert Saleh, who just got fired after playing the Vikings, they were in shambles after this game. The Vikings are better than the Detroit Lions. Now, if I would have said this before the year, people would have said I'm biased. People would have called me crazy, say I'm drinking too much purple Kool-Aid, and I understand that. The Lions were a fantastic football team last season. But in the NFL, it's not a rich tapestry. It is all about what have you done for me lately. And if we look at just the silent tape over the first 5 games that each team has played, yes, the Lions have looked great, but the Vikings have looked better. So we talk about some advantages here that the Vikings have over the Lions. I think Kevin O'Connell is a better coach than Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell's done a great job of instilling a very tough-minded culture and offensive genius, but I just think Kevin O'Connell's a little better. I think he's a better play caller. Obviously, Ben Johnson does call the plays offensively, but Campbell's heavily involved in those game plans. I think O'Connell is better in that, and honestly, I like the Vikings culture just a little bit more. I think it's a little more sustainable than the Lions culture. And also this, I think Brian Flores is a better coordinator than Ben Johnson. Like, this is also the matchup I'm most excited to watch this week, just see what wrinkles each of these guys, put in their systems. Brian Flores also had that viral quote saying, I'm going to fight fire with fire, because he knows Ben Johnson is going to be aggressive. We know Flores is going to be aggressive. It is going to be must-watch TV when the Vikings are out there on defense and the Lions are out there on offense. And when the Lions are out there on offense, they got all types of weapons. But they don't have a guy like Justin Jefferson. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a fantastic receiver. He is not even close to the caliber receiver that Jefferson is. Jefferson can play in the slot. He can play outside. He can even go in the backfield and catch a couple passes. But then you add on Jordan Addison, who I think is a better complement receiver to a guy like Jameson Williams. And you add T.J. Hockenson if he's able to go. You add, that star-studded offensive line. Both teams have them. But I think the Vikings, I would take their weapons mainly because of number 18. When we talk about the talent they both have defensively, I think the advantage goes to the Minnesota Vikings. I think maybe the Vikings don't have that blue chipper like the Lions had in Aiden Hutchinson, but now you take him out of it. The Vikings have 10, 12 very, very solid defensive players who all know how to play well together. I don't know if the Lions' defensive talent can even sniff the level of the Minnesota Vikings. And I already kind of teased it, the culture. I think the Vikings are a process-oriented organization. The results have been great throughout the first 5 games, but they're going to go back this bye week, figure out where they can get better, figure out where they can improve, and I think that's where the culture of the Vikings is so much better. But Stephen A., he also had to say this about the Detroit Lions, saying you look at Detroit, they got 2 running backs. Both have went for over 300 yards. They got a dual threat at the running back spot. They got a dual threat at the receiver spot. You got Laporta at the tight end spot. I'm looking at the weapons, and once upon a time, I thought Minnesota was the team with the plethora of weapons, but I am looking at the Detroit Lions right now. And with the culture Dan Campbell has instilled in that team, I got to tell you something. I am very impressed with what I am seeing. Now, Stephen A. said the Vikings' weapons aren't up to par with the Lions' weapons, but when the Vikings are fully healthy, I think I would give them the slight advantage. Now, I think the Vikings' second wide receiver is better than the Lions' second wide receiver. I think the running back, advantage goes to the Detroit Lions. They do have Gibbs and Montgomery. Sewell's probably just slightly better than Christian Darrisaw. Tight end, you can call it a wash, but I think the difference is Jefferson over a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, the Lions do have great weapons themselves. They have, like Stephen A. was saying, 2 great receivers, 2 great running backs, great tight end, the best offensive line in the league. But I just think with the Justin Jefferson, the number 18 effect, it takes the Vikings' weapons to another level. And then Cris Carter, he responded by saying this. He was just saying, not having Aiden Hutchinson will hurt. And I totally agree. Not having Hutch in this lineup for the Detroit Lions is going to hurt this football team. They are a very top-heavy edge group. They don't have the depth, that other teams have. And with losing Hutchinson, Cris Carter made this point. Hawk doesn't need to chip anyone. He can just release free. They don't need to keep a running back or a tight end in when they don't have Aiden Hutchinson in that lineup. I think that's fantastic. And then they also said this. They don't have a Justin Jefferson. There's only one of them in the National Football League. The best wide receiver in the league. It's going to cause so many matchup problems, and Cris Carter alluded to it, just saying when you got to roll all that attention, you got to roll that safety coverage to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison will be wide open in one-on-one chances. And with the Lions not necessarily having a good second cornerback, Addison should eat this weekend. And that's my bold take. That's my hot take, is that Jordan Addison will go over 125 yards receiving and find the end zone at least one time. But I do just want to say a thank you to Cris Carter, one of the best Vikings of all time, for, going toe-to-toe with Stephen A. Smith. He's a great debater. He's great at what he does, but Cris Carter stood in the ring, took the punches, and threw back some great, haymakers to defend his Minnesota Vikings. So let's show him some love. One of the best Vikings receivers and one of the best receivers in the National Football League of all time. Type his jersey number, type those 80s down below in the comments section. Coming up next on the show, we do have some disappointing injury news around Blake Cashman, and I do want to throw you guys some couple stats about Justin Jefferson absolutely destroying and owning the Detroit Lions. But before we dive into that, I do want to give a massive shout out to today's presenting sponsor, and that is Game Time. If you guys download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS, you guys will get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Now, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Now, tickets to the Lions game this weekend are very, very expensive. If you guys want to help yourself out and have not used Game Time yet, just download the app. Use promo code ChatSports. Terms apply. First purchase only, but plug in that promo code, and you guys will get $20 off. So terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Got that link for you guys in the comments and description of today's show. So we got some disappointing injury news around our Minnesota Vikings as Andrew Kramer does a great job covering them. Tweeted out sources, Vikings linebacker Blake Cashman is dealing with turf toe and isn't expected to play against the Lions. His status for the next game against the Rams following Thursday is also in doubt from what I've heard. So this is disappointing, but honestly with the way Grugier Hill has stepped in for Ivan Pace when he has to miss time, obviously this is a big blow because of how well Cashman has played, but you have a solid linebacker to fill in his place. Now, we also do have an injury update around TJ Hockenson from play-by-play legend Paul Allen saying we don't know if we'll get TJ or not yet. He had a great first day on Monday, kind of back on the field in London, and then had a great day yesterday, so he'll keep working. Now, I think the Vikings need Hawk this week. Kevin O'Connell gave his press conference today saying there's a lot of football left. We don't need to rush anybody back, and I understand that. The goal is not to win a Week 7 game versus the Lions. The goal is to win the Super Bowl. And I think TJ Hockenson, obviously I want him for the playoff run, but this has, first seed implications. This has NFC North implications. So having TJ Hockenson back is huge. And, there's one guy on the Lions team. I hope he's ready to go. I hope Kirby Joseph is ready to rock this Sunday because if TJ Hockenson is out there, I want Kevin O'Connell to dial up a 50-50 ball. Don't try to get dirty with Joseph. We'll beat him on the field. Hopefully you throw TJ Hockenson a 50-50 ball when he's one-on-one with number 33. I can't stand this guy. He is by far my least favorite player in the National Football League. But, I do think with, Justin Jefferson, dominating the Lions in the past, I expect Jordan Addison to have a monster game. The Lions are going to hit the film room this week. They're going to go back and look at past games against the Vikings, and they're going to see that Jefferson has completely dominated the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I do have some stats around him heading into this game. His career averages versus the Detroit Lions, I think he's averaging around, it's 180-something yards per game, and he has just been awesome, man. Truly has been very, very special. Let me just get you guys his exact stats here. Yeah, his career numbers in 8 games, 7.8 receptions per game, 134 yards, and 0.4 touchdowns per game. So he has owned them. So I think that's going to allow Jordan Addison to really get going. And this is my score prediction for the game. I got the Vikings winning 31-16 here. I think the Vikings defense is going to be great in the red zone. I think that's going to be the difference. I think the Vikings going to finish these drives with touchdowns. Lions will be held to field goals. I think that's going to be the biggest takeaway from that game. But, the Vikings are the better football team, and it will show out there on the field on Sunday. I understand the Lions, they got all types of talent, but I just think the talent, if you stack together or if you stack up each 53-man roster next to each other, I'm taking the Vikings roster. I think they got more talent on both sides of the football, so that's what I'm going with. I'm going with 31-16, but you guys let me know. Predict the score for me. Vikings versus Lions down below in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think will happen. And if you guys do want to give me a follow on Twitter, that's the handle right there, @PatSieps. Give me a follow over there, and give you guys a follow right back. But thank you guys so much for watching today's show. As always, SKOL Vikes.